What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happens?
They do it for real. Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
Which if he hits you because he's so accurate, he's going to drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not even.
Gareth A. Davis noted that Gervonta remained composed during the press conference and face-off, showing little reaction to Jake Paul's constant teasing about his height. According to Gareth, Tank appeared calm, even slightly reluctant about the matchup. But once the opening bell sounds, he expects Davis to unleash a storm of punches that will completely shut Jake down.
Went about the presser.
He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you? It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to. I'm just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It's almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and it just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really wasn't taking it seriously.
Ryan Garcia doesn't hide his disappointment over the upcoming Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis bout. He blasts the matchup as an insult to real boxing, stressing how unfair the size and weight gap is between the two fighters. According to Ryan, this isn't a genuine contest. It's a show designed to grab attention rather than earn respect. He insists that true boxing is built on skill, legacy, and sportsmanship, not social media spectacle. Watching a smaller fighter like Gervonta take on a naturally larger opponent like Jake, he says, feels completely wrong, especially when it's being promoted as a serious fight. Garcia warns that the event sets a poor example for young boxers by suggesting that fame and money matter more than hard work and integrity. For him, this matchup doesn't celebrate the sport. It cheapens it.
Mainly Jake's end. We're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, you got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. Right. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So, at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just think that it's a disgrace to boxing.
well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that?
Well,
to you?
I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147. I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he's fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's calling me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson, low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But he was 60 years old. I mean,
right.
What the f are we talking about
60.
here?
That's crazy.
Sean Porter views this fight through the lens of a seasoned veteran, seeing it as a symbol of boxing's shifting direction. He believes today's fighters are more drawn to fast paydays than lasting greatness. In Porter's eyes, Gervonta Davis has become part of that new wave, one that values financial gain over legacy. He recalls a time when legends risked their records for glory, chasing the toughest opponents to etch their names into history. Now, he says, the focus has turned to sponsorships, viral moments, and short-term profits. Porter argues that Tank, despite being one of the most gifted fighters of his era, is spending his prime on spectacle rather than legacy-defining wars. His criticism isn't aimed only at Davis. It's at the growing trend of money-first fights that, in his opinion, are slowly stripping boxing of its soul.
But why are you doing that? How do you sort of see this scenario now for him?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, what to really say about it. I've only been asked this when it's presented to me. That's when I think about it. And I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters. I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter. I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly it's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight, so.
Many analysts believe the real issue lies not only with the fighters, but with the audience itself. They argue that today's fan culture fuels the spectacle. True technical bouts between elite boxers often fly under the radar, while influencer and exhibition fights dominate social media trends. According to them, the rise of these events reflects how short online attention spans have turned boxing into a drama-driven business rather than a sport built on skill. The Jake Paul effect, they say, isn't just his doing. It's the result of fans rewarding chaos instead of craftsmanship. When the spotlight goes to trash talk and viral moments rather than discipline and mastery, real fighters lose motivation to risk it all for respect. Analysts warn that this audience-driven shift has blurred the line between competition and entertainment. Real champions fight for legacy and titles, while influencers fight for clicks. And as long as viewers keep paying for spectacle, the balance will keep tilting away from sport and toward show business.
Boxing has evolved to where it's at. I'll expand on that. For one, you have good fights where I'm not talking about these type of fights, crossover type of fight, former Disney guy, influencer stuff. Not. And Jake Paul has really promoted himself and acquitted himself to the point where he's kind of a boxer. Now, he hasn't fought the top names. I get it, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing his thing. He's training like a boxer. He's not like taking it lightly, like streaming and then working on his YouTube more than he's working on his boxing. It is what it is, right? But beyond that, let's keep it going. I told you I'm about to really get unpacked. Subscribe to the channel. The reality is, the reason why I'm saying I blame you, the fans, is because we've had some very good fights, like David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, whatever. I'm talking in the last 5-10 years, right? Very good fights, all boxing. So not talking influencer or any type of crossover fight, right? Good fights. And then you got boxing fans in a niche sport who didn't further the exposure by advertising or buying the fight, mostly buying the fight with piracy and whatnot. So now we're at a point in this society where these companies, they're like, all right, they see the piracy is a problem. Now they're looking for a sure shot, must win type of scenarios. That's why we're getting these fights that some people, purists and diehards, are calling wonky fights. You know what I mean? It is your fault.
One of the biggest concerns among boxing professionals is the massive size gap between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Jake naturally competes around cruiserweight, while Tank's true home is the lightweight division. Experts point out that no matter how skilled Davis may be, the laws of physics can't be ignored. Height, reach, and weight all play crucial roles in a fight. They caution that matching Tank against Jake in a sanctioned bout could be both unbalanced and risky. Jake has proven he can take punches from naturally bigger men and keep pressing forward, whereas Tank will be forced to close the distance against someone taller, heavier, and physically stronger. Even with Tank's superior speed and technique, analysts argue the size mismatch raises serious safety and fairness concerns. For purists, it's yet another example of boxing bending its own traditions in favor of spectacle over sport.
How do I even start to break down a Tank Davis versus Jake Paul fight? Tank, a massively powerful fighter at 135 pounds, but his punch output is among the lowest in the sport. Jake has a pretty decent punch output for a guy that's 200 pounds. He hits hard in his own right, but doesn't have the skill and capabilities anywhere close, or the feet, or the hand speed, or the eyes anywhere close to Tank Davis, but has a power that Tank Davis has probably never felt, but just because Jake is naturally 70 pounds bigger than him, right? So 10 rounds, 3 minutes, who starts to show the wear and tear first? I know if Tank touches him on the jaw, it's probably not going to feel like roses, regardless if he's 135 or 150 or whatever he steps in that night. He's still a Tank and has still put guys down as he's gone up in weight, but Jake is just so much bigger. How much will the power that Tank has at the lower weight?
Lamont Roach adds fuel to the growing debate by exposing what he claims is a business conflict behind the scenes. According to him, Gervonta Davis was contractually expected to pursue a rematch with a top contender, yet he chose to face Jake Paul instead, chasing a massive payday over professional obligation. Roach suggests this decision reflects a change in Tank's priorities. It's no longer about proving greatness, but about maximizing earnings. He stresses that true fighters honor their agreements because the sport's integrity relies on it. While Roach acknowledges Davis's exceptional talent and finishing instinct, he believes this move raises questions about his discipline and commitment. Many fans share the disappointment, feeling that the rematch would have been a chance for Tank to silence doubters and reaffirm his dominance inside the ring.
He's better than Tank. I don't even know how you cannot have him better than Tank. People question Tank's resume anyway. But if you make Tank take a knee and they don't call it a knockdown and you still get the draw, you beat him. You beat Tank. And then you dominate Pitbull, one of Tank's best wins. Bruh, you better than him. The resume, listen, bruh. I didn't say greater. I said better. The resume means politics. Ryan was just saying it. Lamont Roach could have been on a back burner and they were holding him back, so he had to go down to 130, doing the grunt work like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, waiting for his time to shine. Resume, if the business chooses you, they can move you along right. He actually get cherry picked and he best Tank, and then he stops Pitbull. He's better. Y'all know how the business of boxing works. You just saw Terrence Crawford actually be the best fighter we've seen in decades. The man, Terrence Crawford, can arguably be better than Floyd Mayweather. Y'all saw the business shitting for all of his career, practically all of his career. And you see that he's better than Nello? What a surprise! We've been a guy coming from lightweight can beat Nello at...
Max Kellerman takes a more balanced stance, acknowledging Jake Paul's undeniable influence on the business side of boxing. He points out that no current fighter matches Jake's ability to sell tickets or generate mainstream excitement. That's why so many professionals agree to fight him. Not necessarily out of respect for his skill, but because his marketing reach is unmatched. According to Kellerman, Jake has become a promotional powerhouse, and even seasoned champions are drawn to the exposure that comes with sharing the ring with him. During his debate with Paulie Malignaggi, both analysts questioned whether Gervonta Davis's knockout power would carry over against someone of Jake's size. While they agreed that Tank's explosiveness is world-class, they also raised doubts about how much it would matter when facing a naturally bigger opponent.
In the way, holler at me. Tell me you want to fight Jake. Tell me you got a bag coming up. All right, boom. Like,
go do
it's a way to handle that. We have a contract. You cannot breach a contract and think shit just gonna be sweet. You can't. You can't do that. Right. We have a contract. So it's not like this wasn't supposed to happen or whatever the case may be, and he just went and took the Jake route. We had a signed contract to fight. So him breaching the contract is, if y'all put yourself in my shoes, you gotta think, I'm looking forward to fighting and getting paid. I'm looking forward to fighting and winning so I could be two-time world champ. Me. I'm in training for a fight to be a champion in another weight class and for me to be crowned champion twice in my career. And this just goes and then end up announcing another fight. Put yourself in my shoes.
Did you find out just like the rest of us did?
Kinda. So I was on the fence because they didn't announce. They was like, all right, we're gonna announce. All right, we're gonna announce. All right, they're gonna announce every week. All right, we're gonna announce the fight. I'm like, all right, they on the bullshit.
Eddie Griffin closes a debate with sharp, skeptical take, claiming that Jake Paul's fights are less about pure competition and more about controlled entertainment. He refers to them as Hollywood-style bouts, suggesting that outcomes are subtly managed to protect profits rather than uphold sportsmanship. Griffin points to the Mike Tyson exhibition as an example, arguing that Tyson could have ended that fight early but didn't, because it wasn't part of the script. He believes the same logic could apply to the Tank matchup, a fight designed more for spectacle than substance. If Jake gets knocked out too quickly, the buzz fades. If he survives, the profits soar. In Griffin's view, both camps understand the business stakes, which is why the event feels more like production than a rivalry. Still, he concedes that fans will eagerly watch regardless, proving that, in today's boxing world, controversy and drama often sell better than authenticity.
Knockouts, I agree. He can punch, but there's a lot of limited knockout artists, though, man.
He's one of the least active punchers in the game with the highest knockout percentage of current heavyweight.
But if he was a real knockout artist, if he was a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best of the best. Felix Trinidad was a knockout artist. He was knocking out the best of the best. If you're a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best and show us how he smokes them. But the way
Paulie,
we did when Felix Trinidad was doing it. You know? The way when Mike Tyson was doing it in his prime. Say what you want about the Mike Tyson era. He knocked out everyone from 1986 to 1989. Everyone got knocked out. Everyone.
Well, by your standard, you could say that Tyson was, to a degree, manufactured.
No, because he fought everyone that was there. Everyone that was there
Teddy
at that time
Ellis, Teddy Ellis will 100% agree with this,
with the expense
he would say the guys
Witherspoon.
that were afraid of him.
With the exception of Witherspoon. No, but they all, doesn't matter. He knocked them all out. There was nobody you could say in that era except maybe Witherspoon, who had contract issues with King at the time. Except for Witherspoon, there is nobody Tyson didn't fight in that era. He knocked them.
Or, if you wanted to sound a bit more dramatic and YouTube style,